I've always dreamt of going to space one day. Pinch oneself moment to be doing it in a spaceship that we built.
In the lead up to Virgin Galactic's, an astronaut had died in one of the tests.
I knew straight away I needed to be there as fast as possible.
Is there a conversation about discontinuing Virgin Galactic at that moment after losing that life?
What would happen if we had a second accident? Never be forgiven. I mean, our reputations would be destroyed.
As I watched the last episode of the docuseries last night, I saw you once again in typical Richard Branson style set yourself a new frontier, which was space. As if as if all of that you'd done before wasn't enough, you decided to aim for the stars. Why?
So I remember many years ago when President Gorbachev was leader of Russia, and he was trying to bring perestroika to the West and trying to put out peace signs. He invited me to come to Russia to be the first person to go up in a Russian spaceship, but it would have meant a big check, 60 million. It would have meant a year learning Russian and being in Russia. And I just didn't have the time and already the spare money to do something like that. But it did just get me thinking, that's an inordinate amount of money to charge for somebody to go to space. For that kind of money, why couldn't I just start building a spaceship? And so we registered Virgin Galactic Airways, and I went around the world trying to see if we could find somebody to build us a spaceship, and then just found this genius, Bert Rutan. To me, I've always dreamt of going to space one day. I think 50% of the people listening to this program will have dreamt or will dream of going to space. 50% will think, why on earth would you want to do that? But it was the most extraordinary day of my life. My trip to space, looking back at this beautiful Earth that we live on, it was from space, whilst floating. Whilst floating with a lovely group of people, just an extraordinary experience, and to be honest, to pinch oneself moment to be doing it in a spaceship that we built, so it was a dream come true.
In that documentary, we're also reminded of the cost of all of these endeavours at a moment when there's a shot of you taking a phone call at your house, learning that in the lead up to Virgin Galactic's going to space for the first time, an astronaut had died in one of the tests. It's a very emotional scene, but it is a reminder of the cost of these great endeavours to humanity. That day, when you received that phone call and then you rushed yourself to the site, what's on your mind?
So it's happened to me twice in my life. I was once in a cinema in Europe with my kids, and my phone just kept vibrating, and I ignored it, and then on the sort of third or fourth time, I decided to walk out of the cinema and check it. And one of our trains had come off the track, and straight away I knew that I just had to get to the scene of the accident, and there were no flights that night, so we had to drive through the night, and then anyway we got there at early in the morning the next day. One lady had died, and went to the morgue to meet the relatives, and we had a hug, and fortunately, it turned out it wasn't actually a Virgin's fault, but you're still obviously responsible for the fact that it was on a Virgin train, and then you've got to, as owner, talk to the press, but I think the fact that you make an effort and get there quickly is very important, and the same when we lost a test spaceship. I knew straight away, based on my previous experience with the train, that I needed to be there as fast as possible.
Is there a conversation about discontinuing Virgin Galactic at that moment after losing that life?
Yeah, there was. I mean, I sat down with George Whiteside and just said, is it, asked ourselves questions. Is it worth it? Is it worth, is it worth continuing? What would happen if we had a second accident? We would never be forgiven. I mean, it would our reputations would be destroyed. But then we spoke with all the engineers, and we spoke with many of the people who'd signed up to go to space, and we spoke with the family and of the pilot who'd lost, and with one voice they said, you've got to continue, and we did, and we're still we're still at the early stage of space travel. There's still risks. I mean, we think that we don't. We think that we're through all the big risks. We can automatically switch off an engine if anything goes wrong with the rocket motor. And we've got astronauts actually flying our craft. But it is the early stages, but I think everybody involved are doing it with their eyes open.
One of the most beautiful, heart-wrenching scenes from the docuseries is in 2021, when you are months away from your first space flight on your own spacecraft, spaceplane, whatever the terminology is. You've named it after your mother. You've named the mothership after Eve. And then tragically, she passes away from COVID before she has the chance to embark on that space journey with you, which she was planning to do. That phase of your life when you lose your mother, when you lose Eve, what impact does that have on you and your mission?
First of all, she'd lived a long life and an extraordinary life, and so was. I was very, very fortunate, and our family were very fortunate to have had her around so long. And the absolute last thing that she would have wanted was for the mission or any missions to be held up as a result of her death. I mean, she will. If there's a star up there, she'll be on it, and I'm sure that she was there in spirit when I went to space, and she definitely would have been smiling down at us with my dad Ted, and so I think when we lose loved ones, it's you live on through your parents, and your children live on through you, and your grandchildren live on through your children, and that's the sort of the wonders of life.
And when you came down from that space flight, which is detailed in your second memoir, in the sort of updated version, which has just been updated, You wrote a letter to your mum after coming down from space. You said, "Dear Mum, you always told me to reach for the stars. Well, I took my own winding road, but I always knew when to follow your lead. You always pushed us to our limits. You were always a dreamer. You urged me to strive for every opportunity I saw. You told me to chase my wildest fantasies, to live life to the full. How you lived, how you loved, and how you are missed."
Yeah, I mean, she, I think, hopefully, when people read the book, they'll think about their own mums and dads, and how lucky we are to have mums and dads who sacrifice so much for us, and as we grow up, and then obviously later on in life, one can give back in looking after them as they get a little bit older.
If you love the Diary of a CEO brand and you watch this channel, please do me a huge favor. Become part of the 15% of the viewers on this channel that have hit the subscribe button. It helps us tremendously, and the bigger the channel gets, the bigger the guests.